Good morning, everyone. I'm Andy Neill from InfoTech Research Group. I'm joined with Brenda Cowie from QualiWare, SVP of Americas. Welcome, Brenda. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Lovely to be here in the head office of Toronto, so we can film from here today. It's great.
It's excellent.
I just want to tell you a little bit about InfoTech for those that don't know. So InfoTech is a research and advisory firm. So we do very, very deep core research across all domains, across all of IT. So that includes enterprise architecture, obviously today, but we do data, AI significantly now, of course, infrastructure, security, and many other topics. We have clients across the world. We have hundreds of clients, and these are just some of the logos that I put here together, just so you can see the kind of people we work with day to day. So we've got lots of experience in working with these customers day to day, and I interact with architects and chief architects and CTOs every day, as I'm sure you do as well. We are a global organization. We are in London, Ontario, and Toronto was where we started. So we're a Canadian-based company, but then we grew into Las Vegas, Sydney, London, UK, Arlington, Virginia, as well as New Zealand. It's just opened up as another office down there as well. So pretty global now.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Andy. Thanks for being with us today. We're really excited to have this conversation. And like InfoTech, QualiWare is also undergoing some expansion. So we have global offices in the States, in Canada, on this side of the world, in the UK, in South Africa, and also Australia, headquartered in Denmark. And as you know, Andy, we like to talk about the numbers that we think matter. QualiWare is 34 years old now. We're one of the original EA platforms out there.
I had no idea enterprise architecture was 34 years old. That's crazy.
It's been around for a while. We're regularly rated as a leader in the space. And we've got about 1,000 clients all over the world. And we like to talk about the numbers that matter, the numbers that reflect client satisfaction and business health. So our acquisition to churn ratio is 25-1. We have the longest client relationships in the space. Our average customer term is 15 years. Wow. And our longest customer has been with us for 26 years. Wow. So I think that really speaks well to how we serve clients and provide value to them. We serve small, mid-sized, large organizations. For example, one government DTO deployment runs QualiWare for 125,000 users. So we've been around a long time. We've got some.
It scales then.
It scales, definitely scales. There's some good numbers to share, but these aren't simply marketing numbers, right? We do feel that they really reflect a platform that genuinely delivers business value and embeds into the everyday of an organization. So I think I'm curious, and so are probably some of our attendees, to learn from you and your team, right, about the top EA trends in 2026, which is the purpose of our chat today.
Brilliant, thank you. And just to let everyone know, there's a Q&A function, so if you wanted to put a question into the Q&A, we'll get to that towards the end.
Perfect.
So my first trend here is changing the behavior. So this is something that particularly applies to enterprise architects, but applies to other roles as well. So I call this the InfoTech career wave. So this is around, after about 8 years in your career, you've done your postgraduate certifications and graduations, and then you come to a point where you say, I know what I want to do. I want to be a CIO, a CTO, I want to be a chief architect, head of AI, whatever it might be. It's a good place to be. Like you're excited and you know what you want to do. You think technology can solve everything. It can't, but at least it's a good starting point. And you want to be more professional in the area. So you want to learn. That's a good place to be. Then at the 15-year mark, you're in the organization for a period of time and you get promoted to being that chief architect or CIO or whatever that title might be. So you get into what I call the plateau of egotism. And this is where you go, I'm the smartest person in the room. You shall do it my way. Like, I know the best way. Follow me. And I know everything there is to know about this. Like, I can't possibly learn anymore. I'm done. Like, I am the pinnacle. Like, it's stupid. But people are often in that plateau, and that's a problem. Okay.
I think we've all met some of those people.
We've all met some of those people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or been some of those people.
Well, I've been that person. Yeah. I remember back in the day when I was at the first architect, and I was exactly here. Looking back at it now, I was like, what an idiot. Like, why were you like that? That's not conducive. But often you can get past this into the plateau of wisdom. And this is where you go, oh, don't know quite as much as I thought I did. Perhaps I have to recruit really smart people around me to be successful. Perhaps I need to be a lifelong learner. Perhaps I need to be coached and mentored. Doesn't matter how good I am. And that's really the way we ought to be going forward here as well. So there are ways that you can elevate people from that egotism plateau to the wisdom plateau. So these are the 4 ways I've found most successful. The first way is a team sport. And really the team sport is, I want to be able to put together a project and say, you want to deliver this objective or outcome, but it needs different practices to come together to meet that objective. So maybe there's a data aspect to it, security, integration, all those kind of things. And you can't be a superhero. You can't do it on your own. You have to build a team. So it puts you down a peg or two and go, oh, actually, I need to kind of work with others to get this done. I can't be a superhero. That's the first one. Second one is leaping out of the comfort zone. So this is when you say to a data architect, for example, I'm going to give you this project and it's all security based. Whoa, I don't know much about security. Like how? Well, learn it. Go and find it, figure it out. And it makes them have to learn those things and get up to speed in a certain different area. So that might help them as well. This one is my favorite one, but it's a bit of a challenge unless you're a senior leader. So this is around, I inherited a team a while ago of, it's about 20 architects. And two of these architects didn't get along at all. They've been working together for many years, but they were at each other's throats all the time. In meetings, I almost had to separate them and like, wow, steady on. So eventually I said, you know what, this is ridiculous. So I grabbed them both, brought them out of the room and said, you know what, I'm going to give you a project and your performance evaluation is going to be based on the success of this project. Oh my God, please don't do that. Like, yeah, okay. So you're both duly accountable to deliver the project. Like use resources that you need, but you're going to be accountable. They both came to me separately and complained and whinged. And I kind of coached them through it and said, look, go and find out what the other one's good at and bad at and work together and see if you can plug those gaps. Both of them did that. Eventually, they found out that they both had vulnerabilities. They both had really good strengths. And they're actually very complementary. So when they eventually figured out where each other was, they can deliver on those things. And they both came to me afterwards and said, Andy, no one's ever given us the opportunity to work like that before. Now we realize where we're going wrong. And they became actually quite good friends after that. Excellent. So it was an amazing success. It can go wrong. HR can get involved. So be careful, but it can be a good.
But I'm sure the work was richer for it.
Oh, the work was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The other piece is getting out of trouble together. So getting out of trouble together is when you often have, do you remember when you get grabbed by a CIO and dragged into a room and say, this has gone wrong, fix it immediately. And you go, oh dear, we're in trouble now.
Yes.
Often you have to work with a team to get out of trouble. So I remember one day I was working with a small firm and there was a problem with one of our clients saying the data was wrong that we're giving them, and we had to prove it was correct. So I had to work with a small team till like 4 a.m. at many days in a row to get this thing done. And the relationships I built with those team members are for life. In fact, Ari Gleisel, who's one of our colleagues at InfoTech now, he was one of those people that I worked with. And we've got a relationship that goes back to then, and we always look back on those days because it's built such strong bonds. And now we trust each other so well. So it's so easy to work together. So it's a good way.
Excellent. Yeah, those character building projects are always very bonding.
Yeah, they are. Exactly. So how's QualiWare on this side?
Well, so we believe in architecture for all, right? So I've talked about the team sport aspect for years and years and years in regards to EA and transformation initiatives. And in fact, QualiWare is a Danish company, and our CEO, Kuno Brodersen, actually brought that Danish management philosophy to how we do the work with our clients and to how we built the software as a platform, right? So we're big believers in cohesion and consensus and collaboration and consistency, you know, and this makes all that fragmentation visible. You know, it creates intolerance when there's not collaboration, right? And really builds the case for changing and changing the way we work. You know, as you know, I'm a fan of and still play soccer in my elder years.
Football to the
football for you, yeah. But no one scores a goal alone, right? So it takes an entire team from the keeper through the defense to the midfielders to getting it up to the striker, to having, you know, Mo Salah cross it across the, you know, the net and have Virgil head it in, kind of thing. If you're a Liverpool fan, that's where I'm going. Anyways, but you know, that kind of teamwork is essential for successful EA and transformation initiatives, right? So, you know, we really try and enable, and that's the approach we take with software as well, right? It's a team sport. Lots of different people need access. Lots of different people and stakeholders need to be able to look at the data in ways that are meaningful to them as well, right? So that everyone's working towards the same goal.
I guess everyone has a different consumption mechanism and how they want to consume the data as well. So different profiles and different ways of working with the model.
Exactly. Right.
Great.
Hey, next trend.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
The next one is automating architecture review board. Now, the reason I say this one is because architecture review board often gets a reputation of a place where ideas go to die. So we don't really want that, right?
No, we don't.
We want it to be more...
Or a dictatorship.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, we don't want
Worse,
that.
right?
Yes.
We want it to be, I'm going to help you. I'm going to make you more successful. And please come to us, because I remember back in the day when I was running architecture review boards of, 100 architects, and it was like Dragon's Den. It was scary. People would come and go, like, be shaking as they were trying to present. It was like, That's not the way it should be.
Yeah.
So we want to change that.
Good.
So talking about the architecture capabilities and how we go through that evolution, there's a 5-step process of how to get through this. The first step is normally we just only do architecture to the biggest and most complex projects. We've only got a certain amount of architects, I'm sure we all do, and we put them on the most strategic projects that have highest visibility. That's the first step.
Yeah.
So that's pretty obvious. The second step is, well, maybe we can have a collaboration between almost a business stakeholder and partner with the architect team together, and they come as a collaboration to the ARB to get approval. So that's kind of the next step. So it's that collaboration aspect bringing in that. Next piece is, well, perhaps I can create enough standards and patterns and frameworks and building blocks that people can opt in to understand if they're going to be successful on ARB before they even get there.
Right.
So now I can talk to the right people and say, well, I've looked at these standards and frameworks, and I think I'm aligned toward these things first. So now you've got a really good chance of being successful first time without having those architecture waivers and yes, but conversations. Right? Number 4 is, what if I can use an enterprise architecture tool that I can teach these standard patterns and building blocks, those kind of things, and then people can not go to a human being to ask, is this going to be approved? They can go to a tool and say, here's my proposed project and design.
Yes.
Is that aligned to what I should be doing for the culture of the organization and for our future? And the tool can give a response back saying, yes, this is how it, or no, and this is what you have to do to correct it. It might be better coming from a system rather than a human being to say, please course correct. Right?
Yes.
It might be less offensive.
Yeah.
Right? So we can get to that point with some of those tools. And number 5, which I don't think anybody's got to yet, but I think all of the vendors are striving for this.
We are all working towards it.
Yeah, this is a hard one, which is, what if an EA tool you could just point at all the call recordings you've had internally to define what the processes are and model those, and then perhaps all of the data solutions and applications and integrations and infrastructure and security, and build the current state of all of that in a model together that's completely holistic and completely MECE. That's hard to do and understand, but I know everyone's working on that.
Yeah.
And the other piece on here is that we're starting to evolve enterprise architecture, and it's not just EA anymore. It's not just applications.
Yeah.
It's IT service management. Yeah. It's application portfolio management. It's CMDB. It's all these
use cases
together. Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
So many use cases.
So I think that's the evolution of where architecture is going right now. And on this slide, I put a star here because you can buy solutions that enable you to get quite quickly through this landscape. So maybe you can talk a bit about how AIBs come from a QualiWare.
Yeah, I mean, certainly QualiWare helps by connecting all of that information in that centralized repository, right? Like any of these tools do. But it's really about creating that single source of truth. Right. So that everyone's kind of working from the same page. And it's not about it being an IT inventory. It's really about it being a business advantage and empowering your business to evolve, right? And business capabilities is a great way to talk about these things, as you pointed out in your slides, because it's a language that both the business and IT understand, right? And a common ground to start from, and we really feel, that enabling those business capabilities is particularly important, in environments that are dealing with things like M&A and cloud transformation. Like you said, there's different use cases. It's not just applications, right? Although that is the most popular use case in the space, right? But there's regulatory compliance, there's tech debt as well to address. So, all right.
Yeah, and I think that enables people to come together in the name of a business outcome.
Exactly. Exactly.
I like the business capability angle as well, because it enables the business to be involved, and it's not like it's a technical thing. That's
it's a common language that everyone can discuss with each other.
Great.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay.
Next one is federating the decision authority. So this is really, let's change the way we do decisions in the organization. So the idea here is that anyone can make a decision. Not everyone, That's a different thing.
That is
right?
a different thing, yes.
But those that really want to be able to make a decision because they have to be successful in their role, they have to make some kind of decision to get everyone on the same page. I can do that as part of the business. I can do that as part of an OT solution, wherever it might be.
Yeah.
But there are some prerequisites you do, because the architects are now screaming, don't do that. My goodness, the architects have to do that. Well, hang on. So if you collaborate with those that have the deepest experience first before you make that decision, that's important. Yeah. So that includes the architects. It includes subject matter experts, people that have been around a long time and have got that expertise.
Yeah.
And have to seek advice from all stakeholders involved or impacted. So perhaps it's people that downstream might be impacted by that decision, and operations might change because of what your decision making.
Yeah.
Make them on board immediately so they know what's coming before it comes. And then architects have to have been acting as mentors and coaches, not dogmatic, pompous ivory tower director. I wrote that quite late one night. But yeah, we have a reputation, architects, of being a kind of very stringent, no, you can't do that.
Exactly.
Let's say yes and figure out how to do it together, rather than immediately saying, no, you're being stupid, don't do it that way.
Right.
Yeah. Different change of language.
Yeah.
As part of this, you have to put in place what we call an architecture advice forum. This comes from actually ThoughtWorks, this Andrew Hummel law. So it's an interesting pattern. And these are the types of architects I not normally say should probably be able to be consulted with before you make that decision. So we often talk about solution architects, of course, data integration, application, technology, referencing, Togo. But there are other flavors of architects these days. So site reliability architects, data warehouse architects, AI architects, business architects, automation. There's all kinds of flavors of that architect discipline that you might want to open the door for, so people can consult with and get to the right decision.
Yeah.
Once you made that decision, you then come to the architecture decision record.
Yeah.
So this is where you say, let's document this so everyone can see it. And don't put this in like some complicated Jira or GitHub or some repository that only developers can see. Put it on somewhere that everyone can see, some website. First, immutable identifier. Make sure that when you make this decision, you don't change it halfway through. Because what will happen is, if you make a decision and make a record, someone says, look at this record, that looks good, so I'm going to make a decision based on that and implement. And then you go, hang on a minute, you didn't meet that decision record. I did at the time, it changed. Like, that's not cool.
No.
So once you create a decision record, keep it forever. If you want to create a new version, just retire that one and mark it as such, and then create a new one. Just so that if somebody does couple to it, we've all got that lineage. The context of why you're making the decision, there's going to be a reason for doing this in the first place, of course. The decision itself, who you consulted. So remember I said the consulting part before, document that in the decision record as well. So we know who was consulted. Yeah. And other options considered, and explain why you didn't go with them. Right. Otherwise, people will go, why didn't you do it that way? What about that? Right?
There are good reasons, and here they are. Yeah,
exactly.
And here they are.
And often it's like, we need to get to the market quickly. So therefore, the business made that decision. Oh, that's fine. Yeah. Risks mitigated or new. So most of the time, you're making decisions to mitigate risks, of course. Yeah. Sometimes you introduce new risks. So a new risk example might be, I'll just pick a Copilot because it's easy these days. Putting Copilot in place does mitigate a bunch of risks, I'm sure. It also might introduce new ones. For example, I could probably go into Copilot and say, please tell me my boss's salary. And if you've ever been given access to a OneDrive location that somebody's put a document in previously, it will find that. Yes. You would never have had a chance to find that manually. Exactly. But now AI is enabled. Don't do that. But enabling those things is a risk. Yeah. And of course, the reason for this decision in the first place. So how does that evolve into the QualiWare stack? So,
we empower those ADR records, right? Those decisions. And one of the first things I talk about with a prospect is, tell me about your decision-making culture. Right. So what does that look like? What is it? How is it stated? But what does that look like in reality? Sometimes those are different things. Or there's some nuances there that people need to consider.
And what's the real culture rather than what you're telling me?
Exactly. Exactly. So it's important to really have those genuine conversations so that we can figure out how best to help. Right. And again, having all that information in one place helps. Having all that information for, you mentioned the architecture advice form and consulting all the different kinds of architects, right? It's really critical. So we have license types in QualiWare that will cover all of those different architects, and even what traditionally the space would call a read-only license. QualiWare is the only vendor where that license also has a feedback loop. So we think that the opinions, the feedback, the input from everyone is key,
really good.
right? Is really key. So, and that data availability really pushes the decision makers further down in the teams, right? So it's about the business stakeholders are going to be the ones eventually who make all the decisions, but we make sure that there's input from everyone, right? So that we can maintain enterprise-wide coherence and standards and governance, right? So, and also we mentioned it earlier, but making that data available in suitable formats for those different users and for them to leverage to base their business decisions on with more integrity is really key.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll say, like, showing an Archimate model to a business executive is not going to go so well, probably. Like, in theory, if you look at the specification, they say, "Don't worry, we've got a view for that."
Yeah, and they don't care. They don't care to see the boxes and lines and arrows either, right? They just need to know what does it mean to them in their language.
But system integrators will care about that. So having different viewpoints and different ways of expressing data is important.
Very important. Very important. All right, next trend.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Next one is enterprise architects herding the AI engineer cats. So this is about architecture being helpful to the AI community, data science, AI engineers, those kind of things. Because actually there are a bunch of patterns that have come out now by Claude, by Anthropic, by other vendors that are actually identifying new ways of implementing AI, which make it more effective. Okay? Yes. Some of these are actually being implemented right now. So this is a first example where a user creates a prompt to query a large language model, and perhaps that's Claude, and normally you just get a complete response. But what if you are going to have a little repository that allows you to keep the context over a particular session? So now when you're asking the subsequent question, it remembers what you asked before and goes, oh, right, let me build on that. You can build on it again and again. So that gives you that facility. And Claude has that built in, but others, of course, don't. Maybe you have memory. So you've actually got that persistence of the engine across multiple sessions. So now you've got that facility. Perhaps you've got basic tools that it can connect to be able to query things and bringing out the data. So very, very lightweight RAG architecture. So that's what's possible. The next one is prompt chaining. And this one is around, perhaps I take the prompt and rather than querying one big, huge query, perhaps I break it down into small pieces and say, let's query the first bit and get an output. And then I check the output and say, that's not right, throw away. Yeah. Or that's okay, let's carry on to the next section, right? And then you do another query and so on and so forth. So breaking it down into those small parts.
Verify, then involve. Yes, okay.
And that's going to enable you to get to a more consistent result effectively. I was doing this the other day, actually. A client of mine said, can you give me some examples of solutions that can implement a message queue system? And I'm like, we don't have a software review project for that yet. So let me create some. So I created this big prompt and I threw it at Claude. It gave me some deep research back. I'm like, whoa, that was wrong. So then I broke it down to small component parts. It's like, okay, now evaluate these kind of vendors for these kind of functionalities. Right. Now evaluate these vendors for these kind of functionalities. And when I broke it down like that, it made a much better solution.
Interesting.
Orchestrated workflow is the next one. And this is more of an automatic idea. So when you have the user creating a prompt, calling the LLM, what it does is it calls Claude or whatever LLM you've got in choice, and that it evaluates the response, and that response is put back into a feedback loop, and then it goes through again. Actually, when you use Claude Opus, for example, it does this automatically right now. So you'll see it when it goes through the solutions. It says, okay, I'm going to investigate that. I'm going to put in this library. I'm going to look at the output. Interesting. Now I'm going to do this. And it tells you step by step. It goes around in loops to get to the final answer. Right. So some of these solutions have implemented this functionality, some have not. The last one here, which is interesting, is routing. So this is where you have different language models are better at different things. So each language model comes with a model card, and a model card tells you what it's good at, what it's not so good at. So you can create a cool router to say, based on the type of prompt being given, if it's something to do with, I don't know, generating some code for a technical nuance, perhaps I route it to Claude, because that's my repository of choice. Perhaps if I'm doing some deep research on the latest discovery on news, perhaps I go to Gemini. If I'm doing a language translation, perhaps I go to Quen. So using the right model for the right thing that's defined by standards that I'm putting in place for my organization. So you can replace these boxes with whatever technology you like. But now I'm able to create these patterns and suggest what technology should be used for these patterns as well. And it gives kind of developers a fighting chance of getting to where they need to get to with the right technology. That's the idea.
Right.
If architecture was used to be called engineering. How did I get that? How does QualiWare play in this space?
I'll be curious to hear if we hear from some engineers
after
that statement. Yeah, I mean, QualiWare can really play a critical role, right, in helping EA teams support their AI engineers by becoming that sort of governance, intelligence, and operational coordination layer. A lot of the, there's some examples on the slide. I'm not going to read them out. And if people want to learn more about our AI functionality, we've got lots of great stuff on the website, and we'll be doing a webinar about that particular topic in a few weeks. But a lot of the conversations we're having are, well, how do we get our data ready for AI, right? So they're deciding what is the intent of their AI initiatives, and then, because, chaos will be amplified, right? Depending on what you're feeding the beast, as I call it, right?
Nicely worded, poor data.
Exactly. So, as organizations kind of scale beyond what is AI in that education piece and doing some, isolated pilots into more enterprise-wide deployments, these AI engineers really need architectural visibility and governance guidance and reusable assets and operational context, or, it will just, the chaos will be amplified, right? Yeah. So this is where I think EA platforms like QualiWare become really strategically important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's an important point, that focusing on your data before you get to this forward engineered solution is really important.
Yeah. Many EA teams are in that process as we speak.
Actually, I find it's funny that lots of enterprise architects or chief architects become the chief AI officer these days.
Yeah.
Because they have that kind of data background and architecture background.
Yeah.
Makes sense for them.
And I'm now starting to see a lot of AI architect titles.
Right.
Are you as well?
Yeah, just exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
And I think that'll be, for a period of time, they'll be around, but not forever. We used to have a VP of electricity back in the day. Because electricity was more important and a bit flaky. Now we just take it for granted.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess in future AI will be commoditized and we won't see that in modern.
It'll just be how we work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, last trend.
Yeah. This is one. AI agents enriching EA models. So back in the day, I used to say to people, focus on your target state. What you're going to build going forward. There's no good going on current state because you know that already. It's like, what's exciting and new?
Yeah.
I've changed my mind about that recently, and I've said, focus all your efforts on current state. And you can ingest a lot of that. You can go to an API connection to ServiceNow and ingest that. You can go to CNDB, whatever. Bring that information in and build the current state. You can even start mining processes from call recordings, that kind of stuff, start modeling those as well. And that gives you a really solid current state. But the reason I focus on current state now is because AI built into these EA tools can play such a big role in forward engineering possible target states.
Yes.
So now you don't have to have that army of architects, especially junior ones, because that can be done now with AI.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying all architecture will go away, but actually it's going to be augmented with this technology.
Yeah.
So that's
and we talked about that before. So we talk about it as, you're building for today or you're designing for today, but always with tomorrow in mind.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There are some models out there that do this already. These are some of the open source ones that I've seen out there that you could use. But tell me about how QualiWare solved these.
Yeah, I mean, as expected, of course, we have some AI built into the tool, and more every day. And again, we'll go into more detail in that in a future webinar. But it really is changing the role of enterprise architecture, right? And we discussed that earlier. And it's interesting to see how different organizations are tackling that or encouraging that or empowering that, right? So less and less, TOGAF certifications, perhaps, or Archimate certifications, right? And more, architecture with the business lens or the business output in mind. So that's really interesting. And by having some of this functionality put into these tools at making teams more efficient, right? You know, I was speaking, we're starting a CIO CTO podcast at QualiWare called the Enterprise Control Room. And I was speaking with the CTO of a financial services company a few weeks ago. And he talked about AI not as a strategy, but as an accelerator. And he increased his team's output by 217%.
Wow.
And took the revenue from 7 billion to 17 billion in 2 years by using some, with some interesting AI initiatives. It's really interesting stuff. But, you know, for vendors like QualiWare, you know, it's a good opportunity to position EA as, you know, not only a business transformation platform, but that whole DTO conversation, the digital twin, right? So it makes those things more achievable now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
It's funny, my brother actually was talking to, he lives in England, and when we were conversing the other day, he said, so he's not in technology space. He said, so how long before AI does your job? Like, are you upsetting me? It's like, and architecture disciplines are starting to come in, like chief architects as a service and as an AI we're starting to get agents that do some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be here forever, and I think architects are still needed, but certainly there's going to be some augmentation there as well.
Yeah.
So 3 things we can do for tomorrow before we get to the questions. Keep updating your knowledge of AI capabilities and EA tools. So follow QualiWare, follow the others, and find out what you're doing next and how you can use those tools more effectively.
Exactly.
Keeping up to date with the AI patterns and solutions. So some of those I've gone through today already. And improving your knowledge on what can your model do? What can your data in your repository do for the business and for those outcomes? So that's it until the questions. So my last quote here is, where were you when you escaped the plateau of egotism?
Should everyone think about that?
Everyone should think about that. If you don't know, that's interesting. so think about that as well. I'd also like to say we've got our live Vegas event for InfoTech coming up.
Yes, that's in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
In Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So
it'll be a great event. We're going to be there. We're going to be presenting.
Exactly. We'll both be there. No, I'm looking forward to it. It's always a great event with some great content.
Yeah.
And for those of you attending this webinar and you're not aware, InfoTech has some great playbooks. So you have a fantastic EA playbook.
That's right, yes.
That people can tap into. So go to the InfoTech website and CIO playbooks as well. As well as workshops. So I don't know how many people know, but you guys run these EA practice workshops where you kind of help, you know, if you're new to developing the discipline at your organization, Andy and his team will come in and work with you for a week and give you a great framework.
We do all the time.
To and it's fantastic. So
I won't name who it was because it's embarrassing, but I was doing an enterprise architecture workshop the other day for a client, and they had architects there already.
Yeah.
But they didn't really do the operations side of architecture very well. So they said, "Can you come and do a workshop for us for 4 days?"
Perfect.
Oh, sure. So I turned up and they showed me to the room, and in this room were some very older gentlemen with like grey beards and stuff, and it's like, "You're the architects, aren't you?" They said, "How do you know that?" I should guess. so you know they were very old school architects.
Were they philosophizing about the practice?
They did.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had to kind of change the dynamic and say it's more agile these days. It's more iterative. It's a different way of working. So we got there in the end.
Good. So
any questions?
We do have some questions, and if we can't get to your questions in the chat, we will address your questions after the fact and reach out to you. One of the first ones here is, what enterprise architecture trend do you believe will have the biggest impact on large organizations in 2026?
I think that federated decision authority is the biggest one for large organizations. I'm starting to see it right now. So I work with some massive global organizations.
I know.
And they're seeing really good benefits from this. Like if we can empower others to make decisions, but guide them along the way, coach them and change their behavior. And that's the important thing, is changing the way architects work, like changing them to be coaches and mentors. And that's the best way to be. It's quite hard to get them there because, you know, architects have that ego, unfortunately, as we talked about the ego plateau, right? But if you can get them to a place where I get satisfaction, not from getting a pat on the back and saying, "You've done really well done, Andy, you're great." I get more satisfaction now about one of my team or a bunch of my team members together deliver on a project.
Yeah.
And they get called out and they go, "Project has done amazingly well. Look at the value we got from that."
Fantastic.
That's now for me. That was me.
That's the juice.
Right? That's the juice, right? So if you can get them into that role, you've effectively scaled the way architecture works and brought the business in for the bride as well.
Yeah. Okay, great. Next question, and it's kind of a big one.
Right.
You can go a few different ways here.
Okay.
How are leading organizations evolving their EA practices to support AI governance and responsible AI adoption?
Yeah. Well, lots of people are talking about responsible and AI governance in the right way these days. And it comes down to, again, the collaboration you're talking about before, bringing the right people in. So the chief risk officer being involved, the CISO being involved, the head of AI, obviously, data, bring them all together and say, can we establish some kind of risk catalog or risk framework where we can say, these are the risks we need to evaluate when we deploy AI solutions. And some of them are architecturally specific. Some of them are just vendor specific. It depends.
Yeah.
And then you can stack hands on that and say, this is what we're going to do going forward to evaluate, to make sure that we're going to protect ourselves. We're going to do things ethically and responsibly as we roll out AI solutions. So that's a really important kind of conversation to go through. And that needs to be facilitated by tools like QualiWare to make sure that all that information is in one place and you can see that all together. There's guardrails.
Guardrails and governance.
And we're seeing that to take us to the next step in terms of implementation. So it's not just saying, here's our AI principles, here's the risks we've looked at. We'll implement those things now. Like build them as code inside the modules that you're deploying. So you're almost governance by design. Embedded. Exactly.
Yes, that's the key. That's the key. Excellent. Okay. Next question. What role do you see EA playing in reducing technical debt and improving, huge role, and improving business agility over the next few years, especially in today's market, right? There's a lot of geopolitical tensions. People need to be able to pivot.
That was two questions.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's
I'm not asking.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
So the on the technical debt side, you never generally get approval to say fix technical debt. Like, can I go and have $2 million to fix technical debt? Business goes, what? No.
Like, go look at your applications and find that $2 million. Yeah.
So generally, you need to kind of cheat and say, I'm going to deliver this functionality of the application and clean up technical debt as you go. So kind of fold it into that evolution of process. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
It was improving business agility.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is really about architects need to learn that agile and waterfall don't equate to architecturally disciplined or not. Like, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
So you can do, and I find it funny because none of the frameworks out there, the TOGAFs, the DODAFs, the MODAFs, they don't really speak very well to how do you do this in an agile way. And really, for me, it's about, let's make sure that on the backlog of stories in those sprints, we identify architecturally significant stories, identify those people that can make architecture decision records to support those stories before the sprint happens. So you're kind of working a little bit in advance.
You have to show the proof.
Just enough. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you have to have just enough architecture discipline for the sprint to be successful. Yeah. So if we can have that dynamic way of evolving, it's going to really help.
I think just enough is a very common phrase in our space, that's for sure. But it doesn't always happen that way.
No, and I have in my team, there's a bunch of PhDs, for example, in my team, lots of those. And they're the kind of people that were like, no, it's got to be perfect. Let's get it absolutely wonderfully. It's like, no, ship it. Like, no, it's not ready yet. Like, so you have to say, just good enough is good enough. Let's just get it through the door.
Yeah. And then it can evolve.
Then it can evolve.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we have to change those behaviors.
Yeah. All right. So a little bit of the same kind of flavor question. Are you seeing a shift in how CIOs and the business leaders measure the value and ROI of EA initiatives?
Yeah, I mean, the ROI.
It's not just enough for people to kumbaya and work together.
No, that's right.
There has to be a business impact, right?
And often when people ask me how do you measure EA, people have metrics like, how many patterns have you used, that kind of stuff. It's like, that's interesting, but not really valuable to the business.
Yeah.
I'd rather connect this to business outcomes and objectives and say, what's the business measuring? What's the operations look like? How has architecture contributed to that business metric? That's where you find real value. Yeah. So if I've got to market quicker because I reused a pattern that enables me to get to market within 2 weeks rather than 2 months, that's a success story.
Yes.
So it's really pivoting to measure the things that really matter for the business rather than mattering just for
talk to a CFO, right? They want to know, did you increase our revenue?
Yeah.
Did you increase our agility? Did you reduce my costs or did you reduce my risks? Those are really the four categories that you need to speak to.
And reducing cost is a big one, right? If you can reduce cost, it's amazing. There's a pendulum that swings, I find, in the industry between who are those architect people? What are they doing? They're awfully expensive. Get rid of them.
Yeah.
To our systems are all very brittle and very fragile and everything's breaking. What's going on? We need to plan better. Who does that? Oh, I know, architects. Bring them back. So we're getting towards that now. We're getting towards the era of, with this AI evolution and all these applications being evolved.
It's never been more important.
Let's get architecture involved now.
Yeah, the EA function has never been more important.
Absolutely.
I don't think. Yeah. Okay. I think we've got time for one last question.
Sure.
And I think it's a good one to end up with. What capabilities or skills should a modern enterprise architect keyword modern, prioritize developing to stay relevant in 2026 and beyond? And I smell AI. I'm going to guess you're going to make AI here.
There's two things.
There's probably more.
Yeah. So there's two things I look for now. So when I recruit architects, I've recruited hundreds of architects before. And when I recruit architects now, I don't actually look for technical acumen. I don't look for, do you cite TOGAF, and do you know ArcMate? Do you know how to integrate these things together?
Right.
I don't really care.
They can read the book.
I assume they can read the book.
Yes.
What I do look for is business acumen and personal skills. And have you got executive presence? Have you got the ability to make a convincing argument and have a conversation with a human being?
Yes.
That's really important.
Yeah.
It goes back to your collaboration story of how do we make those things together? And if you've got that charisma to be able to bring people together and have those conversations.
And influence.
Yes. It goes so much further than just being an architect saying, thou shalt do it this way. So it's a very different mindset.
Yeah.
The other piece to your point is AI and that training of AI. One of my trends actually that I'm going to be presenting in 2 weeks in live is we need to teach ourselves, we need to be AI fluent. And that means everybody, not just architects, but everyone has to really understand, how does AI work incrementally? So can you test things yourself at home? Because there's open source frameworks right now. So you can test agents, you can test agent orchestration, you can test fine tuning your own models. You can do that right now. Use Hugging Face, use N8N, and use OpenAI technologies to build those things yourself and understand them thoroughly. It makes you relevant as you go forward rather than irrelevant. So architects, I'm expecting to do that stuff.
Yes.
So if your architects out there are not learning that right now, please do so and do that, because you'll be an old-fashioned architect that won't get employed again.
Exactly. Yeah. I really like your first point as well. And I think sometimes it's not discussed enough, because I think, everyone says in any organization, whatever you're doing or selling or that, everyone's a salesperson. Okay. Yeah. But I really think a lot of effective EA initiatives or transformation, it's social work.
Yeah.
It's about that personal touch. It's about how can you relate to other people? Can you hear opposing opinions and take them in and do something with them, and how do you get people on board?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Because they have to feel part of this new way of working.
That's right.
Or it's going to be a very short-term science experiment.
It is, yeah. And it's funny, a lot of my team, so I run the technical counsel team at InfoTech, and my technical counselors have really good success when they're not necessarily talking about the implementation of architecture. They're just talking about the politics and the problems and the concerns they have about people relationships.
Yeah.
That's really powerful to talk about that stuff. It gets them much further than just saying, here's the latest pattern that you should implement.
Exactly. And all the more reason that those business impact messages are so important, because it's really hard to argue data.
Right.
And it's hard to argue results.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Excellent. I think that's all the time we've got for today. Okay. But this was a fantastic conversation.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep. See you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Cheers.